Which is the one thing you don't think you'll ever do again? Enjoy watching. Write in the comments what you would never do. Story 1. Go to Europe. I only speak English. The last time I went to Europe, I went to England. I was dating someone there, and I was making preparations to move there to be with and marry her. And the relationship fell apart hard, and I was there alone for a few nights. I was only 18 back then, and I was hysterical. Thought about offing myself. Now I associate being in the country with one of the worst moments of my life. I still have nightmares sometimes about being in a city on the other side of the ocean, far away from anyone I know, or will take my calls, having no money and no phone. She's moved to another country now, but the UK is ruined for me. I can't go back. The rest of Europe there is a language barrier. Ironically, the only other country I really wanted to visit was Ukraine. That isn't happening now. Story 2. Spelunking. Still can't believe I did it. To enter the cave, you had to traverse your body about 100 yards between a thin gap in lying position. It was so tight that your head, with hard hat and lamp, had to be turned sideways to fit through. Once through that, it opened up into several large caverns covering several miles underground crossing from West Virginia into Virginia along the way. Never been more exhausted or relieved to finish anything. Story 3. 3 half-day-long periods of free labor across 3 days. I could have done it easily when I was younger, but after doing it again like last month, that sort of thing is beyond me now. I'm not a young man anymore, and I don't have the luxury of offering that level of volunteer work either. Bit of a shame, but I've reached the point in my life that if people want that extent of my time and effort, they're gonna have to pay for it, or else they can do it themselves. Story 4. Go out drinking with a few friends and proceed to race one of them back home, cooking 130 to 150 miles per hour down I-65N at 3 a.m. We raced twice, and the second time my friend saw a state trooper getting off at the exit and I didn't see them, and I zoomed right by the state trooper. State trooper didn't get back on the interstate to stop me, so I got away with that one. But I would have lost my license if they would have. It was a lot of fun, but even then life hands you warnings. Story 5. I really like roller coasters, and I've done the drop zone style rides several times. However, I have come to realize I genuinely don't like them, and don't like that stomach-flipping feeling, or the anticipation of waiting for the drop to start. I was once at a park where I saw people get stuck at the top for 20 minutes, and vowed from that point I'd never do it again. 20 minutes of waiting for a ride to drop, not knowing if the something that went wrong with the ride was going to also lead to a disaster would be too much for my nerves. Story 6. A night scuba dive. I got my card, signed up for the 5-dive package for a couple of years when we were on our favorite warm water island. Maybe reached the point where the time I spent underwater was taking time away from doing other stuff with the fam. Okay, maybe I don't need to be this over the top with my new hobby. But the 3rd year, they offered a night dive as part of the package. Had to do it. And for the record, it was pretty cool. Once, nothing went wrong. Pretty fish, nice coral, the usual stuff. Back on the boat, I realized my feeling was mostly relief that it was over. Can't really explain it beyond that. It's just something I don't ever need to go to the effort to do again. I've done it, and once was enough. Story 7. Trust a guy. I've been treated like shit openly by one, put everything I was into another just to be scorned, and then used destroying years of friendship by another one. When I tell you I've had different men hit every how they can fuck you up milestone, I'm good at finding out what other creative ways they have up their sleeve to hurt me. The ones closest have done the most damage, and I'm calling it. Story 8. One thing I know I will never do again is deep sea fishing. Went as a kid and completely forgot most of the experience. We went to Florida 2 years back, and my stepdad wanted me to come deep sea fishing, and I was confused why my mom didn't want to go. Get out there, and I get absolutely horrible seasickness. Threw up multiple times, and wanted to die for 5 whole hours, and remembered the same shit happened to me and my mom last time. I was kind of mad she never reminded me before going out. Fuck that. I'd rather be in bed with a flu or break a bone than experience that shit again. Story 9. Skydiving. Probably one of the most exhilarating experiences I've ever had. The adrenaline that you feel when you're jumping out of a plane and falling 9,000 feet in 60 seconds, quite literally making your body feel like it's about to die, is otherworldly. Then when the chute is pulled and you're floating above your entire plane of existence, you feel an unwavering sense of calm and peace. Floating at 4,000 feet in the air, the only thing you hear is the wind and the ripple of your parachute. No sirens, no dogs barking, no children crying. You hear and feel nothing but serenity. Story 10. This is my last cat. I'm in my 60s and she's a teenager. I think I will be in my early 70s when she shuffles off. I don't want to get another cat after that because I met a lot of older cats whose elderly owners died in the shelter when I was volunteering there. I think it's cruel to adopt an animal that can live 16 years when you probably won't. Of course, I am invoking a kind of Murphy's Law and might wind up living to be 90, but I don't want to chance having to be on my deathbed worrying about whatever pet I have. People say they will take care of your pets, but I've seen a lot of cases where they don't. Story 11. Ride a bloody bike. Once when I was in reception, UK word for kindergarten, I decided to ride a tricycle with my eyes closed. Saw in some kids' books posh people drove with eyes closed or some stupid shit. So I did that. Ended up crashing into a bench, flipping over, and ended up getting my left middle fingernail skinned off. Really bad experience that kind of left me with some trauma over it, and it never crossed my mind to ride one again. Story 12. Force myself into serious full friendships with people I don't like. My friend group is so toxic and cause so much drama. The only reason I stay really talking to them is because my best friend, whom I actually like, doesn't want to be alone, wants more friends. If I didn't have to talk to them, or if there was another friend group I liked that I could slip into, you bet your ass I would. Unfortunately, there isn't though, as my school is fairly small, but after I leave, I'm cutting contact. Depending on what happens, obvi. This happened last year where I forced myself to be friends with someone shitty whom I won't go into detail about, and my life and well-being improved significantly after cutting contact. Story 13. Find an ad online for a paid tickle model. Communicate via email, be ghosted a week before the supposed date for the shoot. I was naive and young, 19. I didn't realize it was porn. Still show up to the address, check other addresses in case it was a typo, realize I'd been had and go home alone terrified out of my mind, but grateful it fell through because I realized at that moment when my friend called me that it was porn. My record would have that in it, especially since I had a tattoo. I have more now, but still. I was a bit too optimistic back then. I was gonna get $400 for being tickled for an hour and filmed, and for some reason it didn't add up that it was porn. Story 14. Cheat. Romantically. I cheat academically constantly with no shame. Cheating was the worst mistake of my life for 5 minutes of gratification that I felt uncomfortable with even during the act, and ruined the best relationship I've ever had. Seeing the look on her face when she found out killed me. Some lessons are better learned the hard way, though. I'd been told cheating is bad all my life, but none of that mattered until I realized how badly I had broken things by an act I didn't even really enjoy. Story 15. New Year's at Times Square, New York. It's one of those one-time things that are awesome to do once, but that's it. I would most likely never do again, because it's just a pain in the ass. It's not as bad as people make it seem, though. You are standing for hours on end, sometimes in the cold. I did it on the second coldest day on record. But you do start getting extremely tired just being there. The cool part is that you start talking and meeting new people, and it's a fun experience. Even the walking back to the hotel was awesome because everyone is walking. Story 16. The skydiver ride they have at amusement parks where you lay in a sling and get pulled high up, then pull a ripcord to fall. Once was enough. Never again. I'll also never again ride the dragster at Cedar Point, or those rides that you sit in this giant circle and go up a really tall tower before it drops you down. I'm good. One time is good enough for a lifetime for me. I'm not even afraid of heights. It's just the physical response that I don't like. On the skydiver one, I couldn't breathe the whole way down. On dragster, the pressure on my chest was insane. And on the drop tower, my legs flew up and hyperextended my knees, causing excruciating pain while walking for the next few hours. Also the movie Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler. Never seen a more stressful movie in my life. Very good movie, but I only need to see it once. Story 17. Becoming close friends with someone too quickly. I'm a very one-on-one type of person. I tend to only hang out with one person at a time as it is more personal and you don't get anxious about it. This has led me to be taken advantage of by people in the past. I become their driver, maid, on-call therapist, all while being softly abused by them. It took a few years for me to break it off, and when I did, they claimed to not know why I left. I took the time to explain, and their response was always, well, I didn't realize I did that. Let's just hang out again. Trust slower. It will be the safest way. Story 18. Stealing. As unpleasant as this is because it was damaging to other people, I'm glad that at some point it just clicked with me. Plus I got caught once and I was like, nah, I'm done. Stealing was more like video game scamming and shoplifting when I was a teenager. It's so weird how one can learn doing the had stuff simply because one was in that kind of environment. I was so detached from the idea that I'm hurting others. I simply wanted something and I knew a way of getting it. It's so weird. Now it's been almost a decade since such an impulse would have even entered my head. Story 19, Snowboarding. I wasted what could have been an amazing ski trip in Tahoe by thinking I'd be good at snowboarding, since skiing came pretty naturally, and renting a board rather than skis. I spent 3 days beating myself senseless on the slopes and could never get the hang of it. I'd just start spinning once I picked up some good speed until the back of my board would inevitably catch and slam me down hard. I'd definitely try it again by borrowing someone's board, but I'll always have skis as a backup plan. Story 20, Inhaling from a balloon that floats. I've seen many videos where people inhale from helium-filled balloons to get a squeaky voice. So I assumed that all lighter-than-air balloons were filled with helium. So my cousin and I inhaled one at a party to get that squeaky voice, and to my horror, it turned out to be another gas, toxic and very pungent. My eyes filled with tears. I kept on coughing, and it burned my entire air passage. I don't know what it was, but I have a feeling that I may have lost months off of my life because of the damage that gas did to my lungs. Apparently there is a cheaper alternative to helium, and it's made in the slums of Mumbai. Can't find the name of that pungent gas. Glad I survived. Story 21. I will never trust my father again. I'm 14 years old, and I really looked up to my dad because he seemed like an amazing person to me. So I told him that I self-harm 3 years ago. He shouted at me and told me if I want to feel pain so bad I should use razors instead of picking my skin. So I did. It was a bad idea, but I didn't know what else to do. I was clean for 8 months, but I relapsed 2 months ago. Story 22. Ignoring my gut intuition when entering a suspect relationship. I laughed at it almost as to say, not today, I got this. Following the lack of acknowledging intuition, a series of small encroachments over the course of months, and before you know it, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what my baseline for sanity is anymore, and I hate myself for having to bury the feelings that I chose to let closest to my heart. Unfortunately, now I'm a sniper with intuition, and won't even allow anything to get off anywhere near my vicinity. I've created a prison. Story 23. Probably maintain my relationship with my mother. She cut me off, disowned me, and essentially cut me off from my family because I got my dad back into my life and said some truly horrible things. I realized she used classic parental alienation syndrome tactics on my sister and I growing up, and I really enjoy my relationship with my dad and feel upset and angry that I lost 11 years of life with him because I believed her as a 10-year-old. We got back into contact, and she never apologized to me for it. I did some things wrong and apologized, and expected her to do the same, but it's like she doesn't see it was wrong, and she doesn't make any effort to speak to me or keep in contact. So I think after this final year of university, where I need her to sign off on student finance, I'm done with that relationship. It makes me angrier than it makes me content. Story 24, Weed. It's just not for me. It's too much. I think it would be fun if it lasted about 25 minutes instead of forever. I get way too high way too easily and I can't come down. It's fun for that initial period when you first start feeling it, and then be silly with your friends a bit. After that, it just becomes a chore I have to endure. I finally got to the point where I said I'm never doing that again. There's even a book title that sounds like my experience. It's called A Supposedly Fun Thing I'll Never Do Again. Story 25. Serve in the military. I joined as a young guy thinking it was a cool job and you're part of the good guys and a force for good or whatever. I wasn't frontline at all. I was an engineer and worked alongside nuclear warheads. It all sounds pretty cool if you don't think about any actual eventuality, danger, or result of any such scenario. It kind of bugs me when people revel in the history of dropping bombs on Japan. Knowing what the weapons now can do and having been to Hiroshima, there isn't joy to be had in that. It may stop a mainland invasion saved lives, but neither result should be a fond memory. Anyone who thinks that it is hasn't been to the Children's Memorial statue or seen kids' toys that are in now in the museum. I left the Navy being more anti-war and anti-nuke than most people. Anyone who thinks dropping the bomb again will win a war, they don't know enough about it. Story 26. I won't accept the bare minimum and not set boundaries, put up with stuff I shouldn't, or make excuses and justifications for people's behaviors. I am working on advocating for myself and figuring out my wants and needs and effectively communicating them with those I care about to preserve relationships I deem valuable. Oh, and also I won't use alcohol as a social lubricant anymore. I'm on day 100 of no alcohol today, and I feel like my social skills and relationships with others, and both my mental and physical health has significantly improved. I don't have a drinking problem, but live in a country where there's a big drinking culture. I realized any time I'd be socializing, I'd be drinking, work, friends, etc. I started Dry January to support a close friend whose father is an alcoholic after a deep drunken New Year's conversation, and we both continued. Story 27, a marijuana drug. I dislike drugs and the culture around them. I'm all for people doing what they want. I vote for legalization, decriminalizing, but I still think less of people who partake. You do you, but I'm certainly judging you. Thing is, when we were traveling through Colorado a few years ago, my wife said to me, "How can you judge so harshly something you haven't done?" Fair point. So we went to a dispensary and we each got an edible. We went by their recommendation. It wasn't good at all. The only thing I got was a terrible headache like I've never had before and zero positives. Plus the cookie was the single worst cookie I've had in my life, so I didn't even get to enjoy a decent baked good from it. And it cost like $1.20. Story 28. Ignore toxicity and red flags in a relationship. I once dated a guy for almost 3 years. He cheated on me with some woman in a different state and had the balls to call it an emotional affair. He lied about it when I gave him the opportunity to be honest and even gave her my number, which she then proceeded to use to harass me with threatening voicemails. He tried to armchair diagnose me as neurotypical when I know damn well I'm not. His idea of feeding me was ramen and or frozen food. Once he made me watch him clip his nasty-ass toenails. After he cheated, I tried to make things right because I wanted to be able to say I put in the effort. So we went to an Italian place down the road from me for a reconciliation meal. His card got declined and he had to call his mom to come take care of it. This wasn't a teenager date either. This motherfucker was a grown-ass man in his 30s. I later decided that he was like an ugly, yellowing leaf on a houseplant. Hideous, doesn't benefit the plant in any way, shape, or form, and in fact, sucks energy away from the plant. I cut off the ugly leaf. Always cut off the ugly leaf. Story 29. Get married. It's a terrible idea. If you love someone, you don't need to get married. If you don't, being married won't make either of you happy. Marriage has virtually no upsides and so many downsides. Tax breaks are not a thing in most states and not at all federally. And besides, what you'll spend on a wedding will take decades to recover in tax breaks in states that do offer them. If you break up, now the government has to tell you how your breakup happens. Without a prenup, they can do things like make you pay for your ex's student loans, which is insane. Just don't do it. If you want a party, have a commitment ceremony, but don't get legally married. At least I won't be doing that again. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Be sure to write comments and share your stories.